Favorite part of Twilight Princess to write? I would definitely have to start by saying that there was no part that wasn't entertaining or interesting to write. I do have my favorites and my standout moments. Apologies for the sounds in the background there. I think someone's working outside today. But no, getting back to the question, my favorite parts to write were definitely, I think anybody who's followed the book, definitely, especially like while I was writing it, knows that my favorite character of the Legend of Zelda series has always been Ganondorf. So I think I'd have to say my favorite parts to write were always parts that had him in it or centered on him. For instance, something that wasn't in the game was the first, point of view that we see from him in through the barrier chapter, that really long chapter that took me forever to finish. That was really, really fun to do, because it's always fun to get inside of a villain's head. It's always interesting to make a villain more than just two-dimensional, and especially for Twilight Princess, because he was sort of I think a cookie cutout for Twilight Princess, because he was just thrown in there kind of at the end, and so making his story come alive and making him more than just what we saw on the surface in the game was really, really a treat. And so to that, I think my ultimate favorite would have to be the Power of Courage, that chapter, where you have the final showdown between Link and Ganondorf on the Field of Elden, and that was really a fun sequence to do, because it just kept going, and I kept thinking of ideas to implement, and I went through this whole choreography in my head and had it written down, and I just kept going through it, and it was really a lot of fun to actually take it from that outline and put words to it, and really make it come alive, put the emotion in there, and switch between him and Ganondorf and Link and Zelda and the Resistance, and the original character, the general of the army, and the Shadow Beast, the Zant. You have all the players there in that sequence, and I think that was really fun to do for that, because you really got to see everybody kind of come into their element, like their war kind of element. But going off that, I mean, definitely the final 5 chapters were a lot of fun to write. It was always bittersweet, because it was ending, and it wasn't going to be around after that, as far as me writing new material, unless you consider the alternates, which were really kind of fun to write too. But I kind of want to offshoot from that and talk about the dungeons as well. The dungeons were a lot of fun to write. When I first started writing 10 plus years ago, I did not write action well at all. And I think especially since my stint through college and script writing and learning the ins and outs through all of that, I really learned pacing of action, and just how to craft verb usage and how to implement that kind of thing in storytelling. And it's always fun to do the action sequences, but it's also equally as fun to do the emotional sequences, like Link and Ilia, and all the banter between Link and Midna. That's always fun. But it was always fun to do the dungeons because I had to think about it, and I had to, I approached it as far as, if this place were real, and like if this place existed in a real world and we were actually there, what would the design look like? What would we have to do? How do we go through it? How do I make it not so convenient? How do I eliminate the keys? And how do I eliminate all the gameplay kind of things and make it a story and make it flow? And so reworking stuff from game to novel was always so much fun, because you had to think about it. It wasn't just like, this came from the game, so insert it into the novel, and just it was not copy and paste almost at all, ever, except dialogue and stuff that I took. But so it definitely wasn't ever really a copy and paste kind of a project. It was really something that you had to think about, and it was just so much fun, and I definitely miss it. I think my favorite dungeon to write was probably the Arbiter's Grounds. I always loved kind of the sand spirit kind of dungeons in the Zelda games. They were always a lot of fun to play through, and I think that showed in the novel. I think one thing that I was sad that I never really put in that was a big thing in the game was the 4 poes that you have to go and collect. But I felt it was too gameish, and it was, kind of a side story, and kind of would sidetrack us too much, because, we're there, and yeah, we need, some obstacles, but, there can be too many obstacles, I think. So that was definitely taken out. But no, so yeah, favorite, definitely. I mean, Ganondorf always takes the cake on that. And I think, yeah, definitely. The iconic scenes from the game were also a lot of fun to write. Like when Midna gets mortally injured, or when you finally get the Master Sword, or when Midna leaves in the end. It's always sad, and I remember I had to rewrite that one because I just wasn't happy with it when I was done, and so I had to rewrite it a little bit until I was happy with it. And the iconic scenes were fun to write, but they were also very nerve-wracking because I knew how to get them right. So that was definitely a challenge. But yeah,